So what I'd like to do now is to introduce you to some of the supporting modules of TSM. They're not particularly exciting, but you need to really understand these basic modules before we can get into the guts of what the product does. And those supporting modules are the customer module, the employee module, which really are the modules where we define who the people are, the entities are that we deal with in TSM. So we'll start with the customer module. We go into action contacts, and in this module we combine both the customers that we do service jobs for or do work for, and also the suppliers that we create purchase orders for, because they're all basically just people. And what you'll see here is, a typical layout of any particular module. You'll typically have a navigation bar across the top, and then you'll have a header record, and then you'll have some sort of detail area that's tabbed where you can go through and look at various details of that. To add a new record into the system, you simply click new, type in whatever needs to be typed in, press save, and assuming you haven't left out any critical features or fields or whatever, it'll go then and save the record. Once again, I'm not here to show you how to do this stuff, just give you an overview. Okay, so if we go and have a look at what is in a customer record. So the first tab is our details tab, where we have the contacts addressing information. We have built into this a very nice feature whereby we have a lookup for suburbs and postcodes. So if I go and add in a new customer and I say it's at 199 Regent Street, and if I type in Redfern, it'll automatically put in the postcode for me. Similarly, if I go and leave the suburb out, let's just type in the postcode, it'll put Redfern in for me as well. If we have some conflicts in terms of there might be multiple options in terms of what the postcodes might be, like Sydney for example, it'll pop up a list of matching entries, and I can then go and choose which the relevant one is. A minor feature, but one that customers quite like. We also have down here customer notes. This is a general note about the customer, which just appears on here. This is a job note which will appear on every single job that we create for this customer. It might be reminding them to beware of the dog, or the keys are under the mat, or something more important than that. And we also have site notes, which will go against the site if this customer is used as a site on a job itself. Various details about the customer, name, phone numbers, etc. It's all fairly obvious. I won't go into the details. We can classify them by industry. We can also then have billing details set up for this customer. So the billing details, if this is blank, this will be the billing address for the customer over here. If we put in an address here without a billing ID, then this will be the billing address for the customer. Or I can put in the customer ID of somebody else into the billing ID, and that'll become the billing address for the customer. So for example, once again, McDonald's, if all the work done for McDonald's stores gets billed to head office, then I would put the head office billing ID in here for every McDonald's store that I go and create over here. So that's sort of the basic addressing details that we have. In our enterprise version, we also have the ability to determine a default invoice layout for this particular customer. If we want a different layout, different terms, different whatever for a particular customer, you can define an invoice layout that you want to use for that customer if it's different from your default. And also similarly for the job card as well, you can define a default job card layout for this customer. If for whatever reason you want to send them a more detailed one, or doesn't include time or whatever you want to customize for them. That's important for some companies, not for everybody, not for most people, but a lot of the features I'm going to show you here are really only important for some companies. But the TSM is just smattered, is full of these little tiny points. I don't want to dwell on them, I just want to make you aware of them. If you go to the general page, we have a lot of options for this customer. And typically, these are all default values for the customer. The account status, they're active, overdue, inactive, or no new jobs, won't let you add new jobs, for example, with this customer. On hold means you can't go and do anything for this customer, not even edit anything whatsoever. You've got, let me see, their payment type, if they pay a particular way. In our product manager, you'll see that we have 5 different price levels. So which price level do they get? If they have a default employee, the technician that does work for them, you can set that default technician. If you've agreed on a special labour type that they will get over the standard labour type, you can set the labour type for them. Special job types and so on. There's a whole bunch of default values which I won't go into the details of too much, but you can set them against the customer to override the system defaults. You can also define over here whether this customer is billable by default or whether you want to make them unbillable by default. It might, for example, be an internal customer that you're using. You never want to bill for their jobs. So you can just set them to unbillable by default. If you don't want invoices to go to the accounting post for a particular customer, and there may be reasons why customers want that, you can also tick the prevent accounting post option, and then none of their invoices will go across. You could automatically email the job to the customer when you create it. There might be some customers that you have an agreement with that, every time we create a job, will just be emailed to you, so you can tick that on there, either when you create it or when you complete the job over here. You can set credit limits for customers. If you link to accounting program, this will probably come from your accounting program itself, but you can set credit limits. You can set a special service fee for this customer if you wanted to, because that's the arrangement that you made with them. And if they're, for example, an international customer, you could perhaps set a different tax code, maybe a free of GST tax code if you're selling to New Zealand or something like that. You also get to see down here a summary of their aging, what they totally owe you completely, and then a breakdown by 30, 60, 90 days current, and so on. So you get a snapshot really of where this customer happens to be. Attached to the customer record, we can have multiple contacts. And I don't think I've got any. Okay, so we can have multiple contacts attached to this customer record, each with their own phone numbers, emails, and that sort of a thing. I'm going to skip some things here. One of the things that are very useful for some companies is the ability to override standard labour rates for particular customers. So the previous option I showed you over here was overriding the standard labour type here, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, for our standard labour types, overriding the labour rate. So for example, your standard hourly rate may be $100 per hour, but for this customer you want to only charge them $80 per hour. So in here, what you can do is you can go and set that up. You can say, right, I'll take my standard labour rate, which is $100, but for them, I'm only going to charge $80 per hour. And I'll go and save that. And then every time I do a standard labour against customer test, then I'll automatically be billed out at $80 an hour instead of $100 per hour. You can also offer product discounts. So you may say, for example, that I have a standard part number, whatever it happens to be. One of these, I don't know whatever that is. So for this particular part number, I will charge, instead of the standard price, I will charge $20. Okay? Or I will charge a markup of 20%. Oh, I've got to say that, sorry. Or I might charge a discount of 10% off the standard price. Or I might charge a markup of 20% on the cost price, depending on how they do their pricing method. Okay, you can do that by particular product ID, or you can do that by product type. So if I was to go and blank out that, let me just cancel that and do that again. So if I leave this blank, I can choose a product type, whatever it might happen to be. So any products of spare parts type, for example, for this customer, I could then go and set a price, a markup, or a discount. So that's the special discount. So we can do special pricing by labour type, and we can do special pricing by product type, and so on. Very important for some companies to understand that. A standard part of every module is the ability to put linked documents. So in here we can link any documents we have anywhere in here. This document is not physically stored in TSM. There's purely a path to where that document exists. So it's very important that whatever path the customer set up is a common path shareable by everybody. So if you point to something on your local C drive, then the next person that comes along is not going to be able to see that particular document. Finally, we have our history tab, the final tab I want to show you that's important, whereby we can see a whole bunch of history. This is a job history of every job we've ever done for this particular customer. We can filter that by all jobs, or just the incomplete jobs, or just the completed jobs to go and have a look at. Pick whichever one we want, and then we can go and view that particular job, or we can go add another job for the customer. We can also do the same thing for invoices. These are all the invoices we've raised against this particular customer. I can view outstanding invoices, paid invoices, or all invoices in here. I can launch any particular one that I want. I got little options down here that, am I doing that based on the job customer, or do I want to do it based on the billing customer, and so on. So that's a little invoice there. In our enterprise version of TSM, we also have the ability to consolidate invoices, a very important part for some companies. And how consolidated invoices work is that we don't actually raise an invoice against the job when it's finished. We mark it as to be consolidated. Then end of the month, we'll go and click that consolidate button. It'll go and find all jobs for this particular customer that are marked as consolidate, create an invoice, and link all those jobs to that particular invoice with the total against that consolidated invoices. That's an enterprise feature of TSM. We can look at quotes that we have in the system. I won't go into too much detail, I'll just run through it. What equipment or assets do we have under contract for this particular customer? I'll be showing you that all later, and you can go in and view any of those assets or add a job for any one of those pieces of equipment. We can look at what schedules that we have set up for this customer in terms of, quarterly maintenance, annual maintenance, etc. And you'll see in the maintenance module where we set up schedules of work to be done against customers, so you can see that in here. We have the ability to set up prepaid time for customers. There are some industries we used to use it in our support department where you would prepay $1,000 worth of time, maybe give them a discount to buy it up front, and then we could consume that time as we go against jobs and so on. What purchase orders do we have for that supplier, in this case if it was a supplier, and what supplier invoices do we have for that particular supplier? What emails have we sent and received against this particular customer, and what assignments or diary entries have we set up to schedule work for this particular customer. So that's pretty much a history of everything in TSM that has to do with the customer. We can see it here in the one place. Okay. I'm not going to go through prerequisites. Prerequisites are a list of training courses and qualifications that this customer requires before you will be able to do work for this particular customer. So for example, you may have a McDonald's, I don't know, as an example, that won't let anybody on site unless they've done a particular a course, induction course or something in terms of
particular equipment.
Yes, whatever it is. And it comes down later in the job. We can filter out the employees we're choosing by only those with the qualifications that match. It's not used by very many people. It's quite obscure.
Can you charge the training to?
No, it's just simply a list of training.
All right.
It's just a list of training. It could be enhanced considerably. It's just a list of training. And finally, tasks. We have a task manager built into TSM, and these are all the tasks that are assigned to people related to this particular customer.
What's the fields in the left? Because the scroll bar is in the middle. So. Oh.
No, it just goes across to the right.
Oh.
Okay, so that's pretty much what's in the customer module. As I said, customer suppliers are all in the same place.